Welcome to Behind the Screen, where we take you past the pixels and into the real lives of content creators, streamers, and artists from around the world. In this series, we explore the journeys, inspirations, and challenges that shape the people behind the screens. From epic gaming moments and creative breakthroughs to the everyday struggles of life, each episode brings you closer to the heart of what it means to be a creator in today's digital landscape. Hosted by Digi, this series is all about connection, inspiration, and celebrating the passion that drives us all. Today, Digi sits down with Jules, better known as Juju is Bomb, a dynamic content creator who's making waves in the horror and TikTok community. With a vibrant personality and a passion for connecting with her audience, Jules has built a supportive and energetic community that thrives on positivity and inclusivity. In this episode, we'll dive into her journey, uncover the motivations behind her content, and learn how she balances the highs and lows of being a creator. So grab your favorite snack, settle in, and get ready to be inspired.
What if
I've been around for a minute.
Yeah, I can definitely. I mean, we're the same age, but definitely you've been more into the content creative sphere for quite a while.
Yeah.
This started with you. You mentioned during the pandemic. That's where it kind of blew up for you.
I mean, I was a cosplayer before then, so I had an online presence a little bit before that. But TikTok kind of took off in a way that none of my other social media really had before. And that was interesting just because I wasn't expecting it to go anywhere, you know? So
Yeah.
it was just more like I kind of got lucky, is what it feels like.
Sure. So, I mean, you got lucky with what video specifically?
I'm trying to remember which one went viral first. I can't remember. So I had a TikTok where I was sitting in my car and I was talking about the face masks, and that because something that women deal with is if you're not smiling, men in particular tell you that you need to smile more.
Mm-hmm.
And so with masks, I was like, they don't get to tell us to do that anymore. I found the loop in the system. And so that one went a little viral. I don't remember how well it did. But then the second video that went viral was, I believe I was actually not working at the time. The store had closed at that point. And I told the story about this little girl who ran up to me in the middle of my store because she thought I looked like Elsa. She was like 2, very little, like little baby. And that one went pretty viral. That one had, I think, 700,000 views on it when everything was said and done. And then from there, I've just had kind of, I have a series that's called Things You Can Say to Your Toddlers and Your Drunk Friends that is pretty popular.
Yeah.
Those videos perform pretty well. And then I've just had a random video here and there.
So tell me more about that series that you're making.
Oh, so I have a big family, right? Lot of little ones. Not to mention that all of my friends are now having babies, so I'm around toddlers pretty frequently, and toddlers really are, truthfully, mentally, like a drunk adult. So when my friends get drunk, I sort of gentle parent them, you know, so they don't feel like I'm yelling at them and they don't get mad at me. So you can talk to a toddler the same way that you would talk to a drunk adult human.
Yeah.
And I get a lot of moms that are like, absolutely 100% true. I say this to my kids and to my friends all the time. Like, so it's just like a relatable, I think, series.
Yeah. Well, I'll definitely insert that to take a look at that because, I mean, the things that called out the most attention to me, at least, was obviously we started off with the Brony stuff, but then I started looking more into it, and then you were answering this, or clipping this guy that was saying, like, the most disgusting stuff about, like, oh, women are supposed to be, like, they should not have an education, we should stop normalizing that.
Ridiculous.
And I was like, get the hell out of here. What is this? And then you bring up the fact that your mother and your sister created a law firm, and then you're managing it, and I'm like, that's amazing.
Yes.
So I mean, putting a pin on that and rolling back a little bit to your growth on TikTok, like what was it? Like you woke up one morning and you see like 700 notifications on your phone or somebody called you?
It was really overwhelming. I just woke up and got on the app. My phone has always been weird with TikTok notifications. Usually, if I'm just getting one or two, they pop up on my phone. But I know when something's up when the app is silent on my phone. Like I have no notifications that pop up on my home screen.
Yeah.
And I thought that was weird because, my friends and I send back and forth like a million TikToks every day. And
Yeah.
I had no notifications. So I opened the app and the little red notification number was just 99 plus.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God. So that, it's cool and it's overwhelming all at once. I didn't really get a chance to read all of the comments just because there was so many of them.
Yeah.
But it was fun. Like it obviously feels good when something kind of blows up that way.
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, you obviously are open to showing your face and even using your name.
Mhm.
Have you been recognized out and about?
That is kind of interesting. Sometimes I don't have the millions of followers that people that get recognized usually do, but
Mm-hmm.
I've had like the offhand, like, are you the girl from TikTok? And I'm like, oh, because the thing is there's another creator that looks a lot like me that people get me mixed up with all the time.
Really?
So it's Stanzy. When I have short hair, me and that creator look very similar, and so sometimes people are like, "Wait, I thought this was you," or either way, and I'm like, "Nope, they are so much more creative and better than me." I appreciate it though. I take it as a compliment every time it happens, but there's been times where people will come up and be like, "Oh my gosh, I just saw you on TikTok. I saw that story," and they're way more specific so that I know that it's me, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's so cute." So whenever I go to conventions, that happens a lot. But like in the public, it's only happened like once or twice.
Okay.
I think the funniest time was my mom she was on the hunt for a Jeep. She wanted to buy a Jeep. So we're all the way down in like the boonies, south part of my state at this dealership because she wanted the Victory Blue Jeep, right?
Oh man,
So
I
she
love
found
that Jeep.
one all
Oh
the way
god.
down there. So I'm with her. I'm not wearing any makeup. I don't look
Yeah.
particularly fancy or anything. I'm not from that part of Utah, so I'm with her. And the salesman keeps looking at me. He's like, do I know you?" And I'm like, "I doubt it. I'm not from here." He's like, "Are you sure? Like I haven't seen you at the grocery store or something." And I'm like, "No. Do you have TikTok by chance?" And he's like,
Oh.
"Oh, yeah, that must be it. That's what it is." And I was like, "Yep, that's me." It's more awkward when they make me fill in the blanks. Because I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know. How
It's
you
like
know me?
you're almost there. You're almost there.
Mm-hmm. I'm like, I'm on the internet. If that helps.
Yeah. Well, that's gonna be like a little bit surreal, even if they don't know you by name, but to have people like, "Hey, I know you," you're like, "Oh my god,
Yeah,
what?"
it's kind of scary in public sometimes. The problem that I created for myself was that my handle is Juju is bomb, right?
Yeah.
Juju is like what 2% of the population calls me, and it's like my very close, intimate family. So when I
Yeah.
am recognized in public or at events and they say Juju, I'm always like, "How'd you know that?" I'm like, "How did you know?"
It's the equivalent of having the name tag on your shirt. It's how do you know my name?
Like, "How did you know that?" Yeah, basically, it's my own fault. But it hits like, you don't know me like that, it's
Yeah.
my fault.
So you did mention about this other creator and you saying very humbly that they're more creative than you, and you did mention that when we were chatting that you have this imposter syndrome, and this is something that
yeah.
everybody mentions. So I mean, you are in the what is it? The you just mentioned it. My God, it's just slipping out from my mind right now. Cosplaying.
Yeah.
I mean, that takes a lot of creative work to do that.
It takes a good amount of time, but you get better at it the more you do it. You get faster. You're able to create things a lot better, quicker, and more efficiently when you've been doing it as long as I have.
Yeah. How long is that though?
Ooh, it's over 15 years now. It's probably closer to 20. I
Whoa.
started when I was about 15 and I'm 30 now.
Wow.
So I've
That's
been at
that's
it
awesome.
a while. Also,
So
if you can
what?
hear
I
my
mean,
cat, I'm so sorry. He's so loud.
oh no, that makes it even better. It kind of reminds me about asking you about your cats, but that's later. Uh, so what is your fandom then? Like, what do you dress up as?
I dress up as kind of everything.
Okay.
There's not like one particular genre that I stick to. I think my favorite thing to shoot, like as photo shoots, is spooky things.
Yeah.
Just because you don't have to be like perfect and they can be like messy or whatever. I'm trying to think. My upcoming cosplay plans for I'll be at Salt Lake City FanX in about 3 weeks. I will be Pom Pom Porin for like the Hello Kitty friends.
Oh, okay.
The cult leader, the Lamb from Cult of the Lamb.
Oh my god, that's awesome! I
It's
love
my
that
favorite
game.
game. I love it so much. And then I'll be Lucifer from Has Been Hotel.
I've also have heard about that. I have it on my list of shows that I have to watch before I die because I'm
Oh, it's
actually
so
interviewing
bingeable.
somebody. I'm interviewing somebody tomorrow that is actually a huge fan of Has Been, and they actually even write fan fiction and read fan fiction in their YouTube channel for Has Been
Oh my
Hotel.
gosh,
So
that's
they're
incredible.
obsessed with it.
You would
They're
love it.
obsessed with it.
You'd love it.
Yep.
If I mean, it's a little bit on the edgier side. Obviously, I mean, it takes place in hell. Um, so the themes are going to be, sins, right? So if it's not
Oh my
something that,
god.
you feel like comfortable with.
No,
But
no.
it's bingeable. It's wonderful. I felt entire emotions. Like it hits different.
Really?
It really does. It's such a good time. And I love the musical aspect of it. Um, Even now, I'm a few months outside of watching it the first time, and I get like snippets of songs stuck in my head that have no reason to be there. Like they have no right being as catchy as
Yeah.
they are. So just like mentally prepare for that one.
Interesting. Now you got me going. Maybe I might catch a few episodes after this interview.
You
Wow.
absolutely should. You can throw it on while you're working. It's wonderful.
I'll definitely take copy on that. So I mean, definitely it'll help with the research for tomorrow's interviews. That's even better.
Oh, for sure.
But you did mention the horror thing. I'm looking right now at a website that says Face of Horror,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm seeing you right now. This is pretty awesome. Because I also see like there's Children's Foundation and charity. Tell me about
Yeah.
that.
So, as far as I understand, the Children's Foundation and charity helps children that are stuck in the hospital feel like they're not stuck in the hospital. So they
Wow.
do events for kids, which is really important. That's a really big deal. The dude who played Jason Voorhees, he is the founder of this Face of Horror thing, and it's all to raise money for charity. So basically, you can vote once a day for your favorite person for free, or you can donate money and give your favorite person a whole bunch of votes. I think the maximum they allow you to do is 250, and that's
Yep.
$250 that goes straight to that charity foundation. Um, so I know a few people that have voted for me have actually put money into it, which I am so endlessly grateful for because that's amazing. I didn't actually enter the contest with any thought that I would be picked. Um, I just thought it would be kind of like a fun thing for me to do because horror is a really big part of who I am as a human. Like if you get to know me a little bit more, the
Hmm.
majority of my Steam games are horror themed. My recommends on all of my streaming platforms are all horror movies. Um, it's kind of funny, like as a genre in books, I'm not too super interested in horror. Like I really like, the horror writers like Stephen King and then the true ghost stories, like the ones that Ellen Lorraine Warren wrote about and published.
Yeah.
But as far as like fantasy horror goes, as like a book, I'm just not, I can't do it. It doesn't hit the same.
Yeah.
But this face of horror thing is a little bit now beyond me because now I'm in first place in my bracket. And now I'm stressed. Because
Where's
now I
that?
don't know. Because now I gotta do it, Like, now I gotta, like, actually
I
do the
girl bossed too
thing.
hard, and now I
I
have to
girl
do
bossed
something.
too hard, and now I gotta try. So it's
Now I
very
have
kind.
responsibilities. That's
I
so
know.
unfair.
It's so kind. It's so sweet. All of these people,
Yeah.
sharing it and voting for me. And not just launching me to first place in my bracket, but keeping me there. That's such a
Wow.
huge deal. Um, and way more than I could ever ask for. So
Yeah.
it's so nice to have that like support from other people.
That's amazing. I'm just looking at the website. I'm like, this is so cool. It's these charities that you never think exists, and this is like so awesome. I'm actually gonna look into this more. So, you mentioned horror and gaming. So, what
Uh-huh.
is like what type of horror games do you play then?
Oh, because I hate myself. It's like Resident Evil. Um,
Oh yeah,
I love those. I usually play them on the hardest difficulty first.
really?
Uh-huh. I don't know. So when I go through and I play them on the hardest difficulty first, I like to replay them because they do have a good replayability. After you beat them on the hardest difficulty, they give you all of this stuff for your like next playthrough. So you just go through and you play it on like a casual setting and you feel like a badass the whole time.
Yeah,
That's nice. Even though it's a little bit of a lie, you have the training wheels on, but it's like I suffered to get here. So I think I earned it.
exactly. That's a good way of looking at it. I mean, usually I just start off at normal, especially with horror. I'm really sensitive to loud sounds, but I like horror. Go figure. So whenever I'm playing games like that, I like one of my top games of horror, like of all time, is Dead Space, the first one.
Dead Space is an
Absolutely,
incredible game. Very
absolutely love
atmospheric.
it. Yeah,
Amazing.
the masterpiece is fantastic. It's incredible. So, but I really hate the fact that the jump scares and this and that really just make my heart skip a beat. And sometimes I just have to stop. I have to stop and just take a break. And sometimes months could go by and I don't even touch the game because I have to kind of like psych myself into like, okay, do it again, do it. You
Yeah.
like this, you know?
Yeah, no, I feel you. I get it. I have been doing it for so long that I no longer am afraid of basically anything.
Really?
Yeah. I don't really get scared of
Yeah,
stuff anymore just because I'm so desensitized to it.
yeah,
So I just go in guns blazing, unafraid. It doesn't mean that I don't get jump scared because obviously I
yeah,
do. I'm not omniscient or omnipotent, so I
yeah.
can't like see into the future. So so I still have fun. You know, I'm still tense and it's hard and it's scary and I don't know why I like it, but I do. And it probably is something that I should talk to a therapist about. But for right now, it's just like fun and casual. So I'm just gonna have my little fun spooky games. I'm not even gonna worry about it.
It's funny. I feel the same way more with movies. Uh, Back when I was a little kid, and I would sneak in to just watch scary movies, even though my parents would say, "Absolutely not, don't watch this." Whatever,
Uh
I
huh.
still would watch them, and I was terrified. I could not sleep at night. But it got to a point where, like you said, you get desensitized. But I still try to look for those movies that will really scratch that itch. Like one of my favorite movies right now, and I play it every single Halloween, is Hereditary. Like absolutely wild movie. I can't do the teen slasher demon type of movie anymore because I kind of get more affected more with horror slash like dread
Yeah,
and
that makes sense.
yeah, and the themes that they touch on are so human and real that it's like, oh, okay, this can actually happen in real life. Fuck, okay, this feels awful. So that's the
Hereditary
scary.
was wild when I watched it. That's one of the movies that I have not rewatched, just because of how Hereditary was. Right, it was a big, uncomfortable, bad time the
Yes,
whole time, and like that was its job. That was what it was meant to do, and it did it
yeah,
well. But that's just not something I could ever watch again. You know, so I'm just like, I'm happy that you love it though. That's so great.
yeah. I mean, I love Hereditary. I just love this director. The name is escaping me, but he also made Midsummer, another movie that I just love to watch again and again.
Oh
And
yeah, I didn't do
it's
well with
just
Midsummer either.
yeah, it's just things that really touch on the human side that it feels too real, and I think that's where the scariness falls into it. Now with games, even though you can have monsters and stuff like that, it's so interactive, and you're so immersed into the atmosphere, like something with Resident Evil or Dead Space, that for some reason my brain fools itself into thinking, oh, this is like way too real. Like I'm feeling it right now.
Right,
You
exactly.
know?
Even though you're like in space with aliens, it's just like never a place that you'll ever be. Like it's
Yep.
just not real.
Absolutely.
You're like, okay, brain, that's cool.
Exactly. So, I'm really happy that you're into this horror stuff because a lot of people that I've interviewed here, it's been mostly cozy games like what is it, Stardew Valley or competitive shooters, but I haven't had somebody who's just like, oh, horror is my thing, it's
Yeah,
absolutely my
horror's
thing.
my genre. I'm really good at it. I don't get too spooked, which kind of doesn't make me fun to watch just because, I don't have like the big Markiplier type reaction that people kind of
Yeah.
giggle at. Mine is more like I get scared and I'm like, okay, thanks. It's kind of you. Um,
So, but I mean, are you saying that you're borderline bored or?
I wouldn't say that I'm bored. I would just say that I react differently than your typical person that would sit down. Because when your typical human who isn't as versed in horror themes sits down to play a horror game, they're having a bad time for the most part. I am
Yeah,
excited to be there.
got
I
it.
react in a completely different way. My headspace is in a different place. Like I'm expecting to be scared, but it takes a lot to actually scare me. Like I don't know if you watched that if there was like a video game that came out that if you screamed, you had to start all the way over. Like
Yeah.
yeah. So I played that game on stream and beat it the first try. I didn't have to start over. So it's just like
You were
I don't know.
absolutely dead.
I was just
Like
like,
your pulse was fine.
yep, I'm like, I'm not, this is cool. Like, I'm not even worried about it.
That's awesome. That's curious. Everybody tends to like kind of react. I don't scream either though. If you see me playing, you think that I'm just dead. But if you were to take my pulse, it's like through the roof.
Yeah, my heart rate's up.
I'm not a screamer. I usually just kind of like jump back on my seat a little bit, but I'm not that way. And you also did mention Cult of the Lamb.
Yes,
Love the game,
that's
but
so fun.
even though there are, you could say, kinda some horror aspects to it, it's more of like the twisted, just psychological horror because you're playing as a cult leader.
I'd say that game is more cozy than anything else, which sounds really funny because of like the theme.
Yeah,
But you
but the
really
theme
are
is
just like,
pretty disturbing though what you're doing though.
you're not wrong. You're absolutely on task there where in the game you are trying to gain power, so that you can become a god in essence or
Yep.
like what you're trying to do.
Yep.
So it's it's cozy in the fact that you have your own little town and you like
I mean,
care
you're
about
the
your
one with
little
the power, so
guys.
it's
Right.
cozy, of course.
You care about your little guys. You're having a good time. You do sacrifice them to better yourself, but that's just part of it. You're in a cult, man. So
You
it
signed
just
up for this. I
you
mean,
signed up
hello.
for it, dude. I don't know what to tell you. I gotta use 16 souls to open this door.
There's nothing wrong with it. Super cozy.
It's very,
Works.
very cute, very demure.
Yeah, so with thinking about animals like that, jumping into the Brony stuff, how did that come about?
That is, I was 18, so I was a kid, right?
Yeah.
18, senior in high school. I had a really good friend of mine who was in my theater class. And we were backstage. We were rehearsing for our school's fall play, I think. And
Yeah.
he and I were just talking about cartoons in general. So I still am a big fan of like Adventure Time and Flapjack and Chowder and like all of those
Yeah.
kind of like old, well, old in quotations, Cartoon Network
Yeah.
shows.
I mean, I saw them. I grew up with them as well. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah, like I liked them. I was on the older side when those started to become, popular and they were airing. And what I liked about them though was that you didn't have to be a boy. You didn't have to, like, they were for everybody. It wasn't
Mm.
like the Power Rangers or whatever DC's version of the Avengers Justice League, you know,
Yeah.
like those cartoons that were heavily targeted at a specific audience. These cartoons were like, we're random, we're chaotic, and you like it, you like it, you don't, you don't. And I loved it. I watched Adventure Time religiously. I don't think I've missed an episode. I think I've seen every single episode of Adventure Time. And so when he told me about My Little Pony, I wasn't initially turned off by it just because it's a cartoon, A.
Yeah.
B, I grew up watching My Little Pony. My little sister had something you need to know about bronies is we talk about them in versions, or generations. I believe My Little Pony Friendship is Magic is generation 5. And then generation 4 is the ones where they still looked like horses, but they had like big eyes and they were a little bit more cartoony, a lot less nightmarish than the 80s version, but still kind of like in the 80s version kind of like vibe.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up watching that and the 80s version of My Little Pony, and I loved it. So when he told me that this new season had come out and that it was an amazing show and that I should watch it, I was like, okay, cool, where is it at? And I actually didn't have the channel that it was showing on. So I had to go watch them all completely legally and totally fine on YouTube. And that's what I did, is I went and because when I found out about My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, it was already a few seasons in. So I went back and I watched all up to current. And then I found a way to watch them as they started to come out. And me and my friend, we would meet every week and we would discuss the episode. And that was just kind of like a fun little thing that me and my friend did. You know, I didn't really realize that Brony was a thing until he started talking to me about the fandom a little bit. And he's like, yeah, this is what they're called when you're a fan of it. It's really cool. It's kind of like an interesting phenomenon. And I was like, yeah, that's interesting. Whatever. There really weren't other people in my school that were into it. When I was a senior in high school, I lived in California. So when I moved back to Utah, I had graduated and I was kind of more online. I had more free time, so I was more into like the fandom sides of my life because I was able to kind of dive deeper. And one of my older friends, we don't really talk anymore, but he told me about the convention that was happening in Utah. And I was like, holy, there's a convention? Like, you're kidding. At this point, I had only been to like a handful of little tiny anime conventions and then Anime Expo. Anime Expo was my like senior gift from my parents. It was really sick. So I was really excited. I was like, oh, that sounds so dope. How do I help? And so he got me in front of the people that were managing the event before I actually got in there and took over. I'm still really good friends with those people. They're really cool. They're out doing their own super sick, cool life stuff. But I offered to host their events for them. And they said, absolutely, we would love that. So that's how I started with the convention itself. Now, the fandom wasn't ever anything that was like super sparkly or interesting to me. Which sounds really funny. Because like I know a lot about it. But at the time, like while I was in it, I just didn't care. Like everyone's like, did you see this fan animation of this like there was a guy that would animate the popular My Little Pony crack fictions. And he would put them out and everybody was obsessed with it. And he's like, have you seen this? Have you seen this? And
let me stop you right there. My Little Pony crack fictions?
Oh, yeah. Someone wrote Twilight Sparkle as a fire truck and told the story from Twilight Sparkle's first-person view as a fire truck. Someone else wrote Twilight Sparkle, turned herself into a giant spider. Like, they just... it's just
it's
interesting.
In the name. It's in the name, crack fiction, but like, why? Like,
I don't know.
What?
I don't know why you would sit there and be like, you know what would be funny? Twilight Sparkle is a fire truck. It ended up being hilarious. Like, don't get me wrong. The fan fictions were funny. Like, the concept of it was hilarious. Just not interesting to me personally. Like, people would tell me about it, I'm like, that's Yes. Okay. Super fun.
Good for
I
you.
ended up going back and watching a few of the animations just because my friends pressured me into it.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite and like the only things that I really loved and latched onto was Friendship is Manly. And basically they took the main six, so like the main six horses, and made them into buff dudes in tiny short shorts and wonderful hair. And it was amazing. And that was the only really thing that I liked. I didn't really know any of like the animators or like the fandom guests or anything, which made my job as like a con head a little bit more awkward because like those people would
Yeah.
come and they'd introduce themselves to me and I'd be like, uh-huh, super cool. Can I help you with anything? You know? Like I had no idea. And so they'd
Yeah.
get a little mad at me. They'd be like, your con head doesn't even know who I am. And
Do you know who I am?
basically, and like my special guest coordinator would have to be like, she just isn't online like that, dude. I'm sorry. Like, she's nice. She's just not going to be all like goo
Swooning over
eyed
you,
at
like-
you. Yeah. And the thing about bronies in particular were these are social reject people that now found popularity online, right? So it
Yeah.
was kind of like a king among nerds type situation where
Oh,
if
boy.
there weren't the fandom, if the fandom wasn't what it was specifically, um they just wouldn't have found what they had, and none of them were humble enough to realize that.
Gotcha.
So when they would come to these events, they'd have this like air about them where they're like, I'm the most important person in this room right now. And I'm like, you're literally in the show with one of the show's writers. Be humble. Like, chill out.
So I mean, I guess it goes back to the essence of the question of like why this show specifically has resonated with just so many people. And I haven't watched it yet, so I'm not here with an angle of criticism. I'm just trying to really understand because from the outside you see the pictures and the posters, and I'm looking at it right now, and the first thing that comes to your mind is, oh, it's just a little girl show, you know?
Yeah.
Myself ignorant, but I don't know. Like, why is it that it just resonated with obviously children, with teenagers, and so far with grown men?
The men part I can't really explain. I don't really know. The thing about the show is that I wouldn't say that it's even particularly for little girls.
Okay.
That's definitely their target demographic. But
Yeah.
when you sit down and you watch it, it's a show that everybody could like. It's really charming. There's music in it. It's really cute and it's fun. And it's also kind of deep and has some pretty suspenseful and kind of tough episodes to watch sometimes.
Really?
Like Applejack doesn't have parents. Her parents died. She lives on the farm with her and her grandma and her little sister, and she's basically raising her little sister. So it's
Oh.
like there's a whole bunch of just different aspects of the show that you don't think about but are important to have. So the show itself is so charming and touches on a bunch of subjects and it was really graceful in the way that it did it.
Yeah.
And then it's also just very fun. The grown men situation, I really don't know, and I don't know how you could explain it because there's nothing about My Little Pony Friendship is Magic that is inherently like eye-catching or what I would think would appeal to men.
Yeah.
So I couldn't speak to that. As a person, I could see why someone would watch it, like anybody could. I would think that when you sat down and you watched it, you would actually enjoy it. Would you want to then go and turn around and spend $500 on merchandise and attend a convention across the country? Probably not. But you'd be like,
Exactly.
it's cute, it's fun, like it's a good time.
Yeah.
I can only really kind of compare it to one other show, and I don't want to make it weird because the fandom is not the same, but it hits a lot like Bluey.
Got it. I mean,
So
I've seen little snippets of Bluey that even adults upload because they have certain messages that is like, damn, this is really deep. Like a 3-year-old
exactly,
is
yeah.
not going to understand this. So then, how have the writers and the creators, received this fandom now? Because as you said, they were marketing it to children, but now they get older people. You get the bronies and all that. How have they dealt with all of that? Have they changed their writing style because of it, or do they stay the same?
I wouldn't say that it pandered. Um, the writers had a very strong idea in mind. Lauren Faust was the creator of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. She did I think Foster's Home, For Imaginary Friends,
Oh,
and
really? That was
Powerpuff
her.
Girls. I'm
That
pretty
was
sure.
her. Whoa.
She has a long list of shows that she's done. Um
What
so
is her
she
name
herself
again? I'm
is just
sorry.
Lauren Faust.
Got it.
So she's produced, worked
A
on,
ton.
written a ton of shows that have not just been for kids. You know, like Powerpuff Girls, for an example. I don't know if you've gone back and watched early Powerpuff Girls, but there are some things in that show that just like were not for
Oh,
children.
oh, hell yeah, hell
Absolutely
yeah.
not. Like there was just
There,
sometimes
when
like
we were kids, Cartoon Network was,
it was
borderline
so much
wild.
cooler, bro. There
Yeah.
was a character canonly in Powerpuff Girls called Sedusa. I just need everybody to know that. Like that
Yes.
is a canon character. She's got snake hair and she does evil in lingerie. Like that's just like not a
Yes.
child's thing.
It was
So
insane. And also this guy, like the devil type of
oh
person.
him?
Him? What?
Yep,
Him.
him.
Yes. I see that and I'm like, wow, this was ahead of its time. Like,
It really was. And we as children didn't even think anything of it. We were just like, ew, bad guy. But then we look at it now and
yeah.
we're like, oh my god, that's wow.
But the thing is
Him
that
really do be that way.
I never associated him dressing like in drag as the bad thing. I was just like, okay, it's a red devil guy and he's insane. That's like the part that
Yeah.
just is most disturbing. Courage the Cowardly Dog was also like that. It's just like, oh my,
Courage the
I think
Cowardly Dog had no
that was my
reason to be
gateway
like
to
that.
horror.
Oh
That was
yeah,
my gateway
for
to
sure.
horror. Absolutely. It was
For
absolutely insane.
sure.
Yeah, definitely a lot of these cartoons from Cartoon Network way back when were like, oof, they were borderline. I mean,
They
Dexter's
were.
Laboratory had its thing, but yes, Powerpuff Girls, especially the mayor and his assistant.
Oh, Miss
Holy
Bellum.
crap! This was that was like, bro, what are you saying with
Yeah, I
this?
mean, there's a bunch of undertones that you just really don't understand that's meant for adults, right? So I feel like that was kind of part of it.
Yeah,
The writers, I know personally from my interacting with them that they really don't like the spicier side of the fandom, if that's like a good PG way to say it. They don't really
yeah,
acknowledge it. Um, and they're just like, you do you, like you're adults, but weird of you, in
yeah,
essence. And they won't talk about it in terms of like when they're in panels and stuff. I mean, people still ask about it and they're very tactful and are like,
yeah,
oh no, like that's uncomfortable for me. Like I'd rather not. The
yeah. It's
fact that
like
people would ask about it though is just like,
yeah,
ooh.
it's like what happened in what was it, in TikTok, that some people started asking really borderline weird questions to voice actors from anime.
Oh yeah, that's been
Uh,
happening for a very long time. Just everybody now has a phone in their hand.
mm-hmm.
So
I can
it's
imagine.
just ooh.
Yeah, I mean, is it because of these people are not self aware or they just don't care
I
when
think
they
it's kind
read that
of
question?
both. I think it's a little bit of both. With the Brony fandom in particular, everybody was very socially awkward.
Yeah,
And like we're not um aware of how social interactions and surroundings should be because they just didn't get out very often. And,
yeah,
I could deal with that. That wasn't something that, I really minded too much,
hmm,
but it definitely was something that if you were just a regular human and you walked into your hotel during my weekend, you'd be like, what the hell is happening? What is going on? So it's just like they have a curious interest. They want to know about the opinion and how these people feel about it. even though they've already stated they feel like they're special and that it's just going to be so funny, and it's really not. And I really wish people would understand that. Like, I have handled celebrities before at
Hmm.
events, especially voice actors,
Yeah.
and they're not your monkey. So walking up to them, throwing money at them and being like, do the roar, that's weird. That's
That's
weird. If they offer up the
jeez.
voice, totally fine.
Yeah.
If you're paying for a recording for them to say a line, totally
Hmm.
fine. But going
Hmm.
up there and like demanding them to
Do
like
it.
speak for you, they're not like it's not like a zoo. Like, it's really weird of you to do that. Be respectful. They're people.
Of course.
Um, but it's just it's bronies were a special breed of weird, but they were also a very special breed of kind and very generous.
Really.
Um, yeah. So I mean, there's obviously a stereotype for a reason. There's a stigma for a reason. And I think anyone who's a creepy weirdo should absolutely be called out. But every time I ran a charity event for like raising money for either someone in the community or for an actual organization, we would blow the amount that I had set out of the water. So they are weird, but they don't mean to. I mean, I'm going to be honest. A good
Yeah.
majority of them either lack the self awareness to understand that they are being strange right now, or they're doing it intentionally because they know that the area that they're in allows them a certain kind of leeway. And I hated that, and I can touch on that a little bit more. But the
Yeah.
majority of them were very sweet, just so awkward that they just didn't get it.
Yeah, because, obviously, like me, somebody from the outside, you hear the word brony and you start thinking of the spiciness of it. Exactly. And you put it in your head and saying, oh, it's a man, a grown man that likes this show. And then they show you what the show is about. And you're like, wait a minute now, what's going on here? Like, why are you watching this show? Like, for what reason, really? And on
Exactly.
top of that, you're going to conventions where there are minors. So your
Mm-hmm.
mind starts kind of doing the math and you start making these assumptions. But at the same time, me personally, I don't want to because people are weird. Everybody has their weird thing that they like to follow, that they like to dress up as, that they like to act as.
Yep.
So, I don't want to jump into that, but I want to ask. I want to know. So you ran these conventions. And so how was it dealing with children and their parents, and then parents seeing grown men uh dressed up as My Little Pony? Did you have to like clarify, or was there like a mutual understanding that it's like, as long as you stay over there we're good, and my kid is over here we're fine?
Well, typically what would happen, because my event was marketed as a family event, meaning it was for all ages, it was for everyone. So
Okay.
the people that were bringing their kids, they themselves were bronies. So that was a show that they
Mm-hmm.
enjoyed as a family. It
Got it.
wasn't necessarily something that people saw online and are like, oh, I'm going to take my kid to that, right? Like,
Yeah.
it was definitely, there was an understanding of what was going to be there, what potentially could happen. Um, and I was very hyper conscious of my vendor hall and of my con attendees. So if I saw, heard, thought that there could be potentially an issue, I addressed it. I didn't leave room for degeneracy. I let people know in the very beginning that it was just not allowed. And if you did do those things, you don't get to come to my show. That was just it. I had a zero tolerance policy for bullying and harassment of any kind. So at any point, if there was any drama regarding that, the hammer would come down. I wasn't kind when it came to those things because there's a zero tolerance policy for it. Even when my own staff broke those rules, they were fired, you know?
Mm.
So these other events that were bigger than mine, that were more, less, family oriented and more brony oriented,
Mm-hmm.
were a lot more dramatic and a lot more problematic than
Yeah.
my event was. Um, and those are the events that people talk about when they kind of refer to a Brony or a Brony con. It's like when you talk about a furry convention and people immediately think of Fur Fest or
Yeah.
Rainforest or something where,
Yeah, that one.
you know, people were leaving like diapers and stuff. Like that's just what you think of, is you think of the worst bottom line and the very worst example. But they weren't all like that. It was like BronyCon was the big huge one that happened. And then there's like a whole bunch of like little ones kind of scattered all over the place. I attended BabsCon, and that one even kind of felt kind of like a freaky free-for-all. But
So
my
which
convention...
one is that? BabsCon?
BabsCon happens in San Francisco.
Okay.
Or happened. I don't know if it's still going on. It might be. My convention ended in 2015, around the same time... Or not 2015. 2020 maybe? I don't know. That's not right either. It was in the 20 teens.
Yeah.
As the show was ending, the fandom was starting to kind of taper off and die out.
Yeah.
And they were kind of like growing up and moving on to bigger, better things, because the majority of the fandom that I noticed was not like a whole grown person. We're talking like late teens, early 20s was typically what I saw. So as they like grew, they were starting with My Little Pony, and then they would branch off into anime, right? And that's kind of like what took their attention. So where there is still a Brony presence where I am, it's not as strong as it was way back in the early 2000s when the show was really hot and happening.
So you mentioned something. You said my show, meaning that you were the head of this stuff that you organized?
Yeah, I was on the planning board. I was a con head for Crystal Mountain BonyCon.
Wow. So how does that work? I mean, it seems like there's a lot of work going into that.
It's a lot of planning, but in terms of actual work that needs to be done, the hardest part comes down to your show's weekend, right? Because most of it's planning at that point. So you're reserving your hotel, and you're opening up your vendor hall, and you're taking your vendor applications, and you're selling tickets and doing all of that stuff. And then the real legwork is the weekend of. You're really getting ready that entire week. You're going to the hotel a whole bunch to make sure everything is the way that it's supposed to be. You're finalizing your contract with the hotel, making sure everything works. The day before, you're able to go in. I mean, this isn't like across the board. It kind of depends on the hotel. But we would go in and we would make sure that everything was set up and everything was good to go. We either would stay at the hotel or we would stay hotel adjacent. And then you would just be available and present to put out any and all fires that entire weekend.
Fires, interesting. What are those fires look like? What are the wildest fires that you've encountered?
Oh my gosh. So I've dealt with angry parents. I've dealt with kind of like just con drama before. And I'm just not a person that really tolerates like petty stuff. So anytime someone was being upset, I was just like, you're being stupid. I'm not dealing with this. You bought a ticket, deal with, like, come or don't. I don't care. But angry parents, my very first year, there was someone running a panel and he mentioned date rape in his panel for some godforsaken reason. And there was a man sitting in there with his like 8-year-old kid.
Oof.
And so I get like this call on the walkie that's like, there's a really upset dad up here. Can you come here? And I was like, no, good, great. So I go up there and I'm like, hello, sir, what's going on? And he tells me everything. And I go, oh, no, I'm so sorry. That's not what we want for our event. When you're accepted for a panel, we did tell you that it had to be PG-13 at the worst, right? Like, we're not dropping excessive swear words. We're not using media that's inappropriate, you know?
Yeah.
So I go in there and I'm like, I'm going to go get this kid out because I asked him what I could do to make it better. And he said, I want to talk to him. And I thought that would be a very valuable lesson. So I go into the room. I grab the kid. He tries to brush me off at first because he's talking.
How old was he?
I would say late teens, early 20s. So definitely old enough to know better.
Yeah.
He tried to brush me off at first because like he was talking to people, and I said, nope, this is absolutely precedent. You guys can find him in the hallway later. And I pulled him out basically by the back of his shirt, and I threw him in front of this like muscular tatted dude. And I was like, I understand that you said something about date rape in your panel. And he's like, yeah, but it was just like a joke. And I was like, well, that's not a very funny joke. You've offended this man. And you said that joke in front of his son. And I just want you to hear him out. You're not going to say anything. You're just going to listen. Because I don't want to hear you defending yourself, because that's an indefensible thing that you did.
Yeah, don't do that.
You're just going to have to listen to this guy. And then I just sat there and watched this man just like rip this kid apart. And I was like, well, he'll never make an inappropriate joke in a panel ever again. So
yeah,
there's that.
good for you. What else do you got?
There was always some sort of interpersonal drama in the Brony fandom. This artist didn't get along with this other artist. This person and this person were dating, and then they weren't dating anymore. And there was always something that was happening inside the fandom that I had to kind of keep my thumb on to make sure that things weren't spiraling out of control. And the funniest thing is a lot of it happened on Twitter. I don't know what it is about Twitter that's just like, call people out here.
Oh my
but
God.
it's basically what it is. So we had someone that we had invited. I don't remember why we invited him, like what he did that was special, but he was just like popping off on Twitter, being like wildly inappropriate. And a whole bunch of people were in our DMs that were like, hey, you should know about this. Like, he's going to your convention. You're supporting him. Because that's essentially what you're saying when you invite someone to your event. You're like, oh, we think they're cool enough to come.
Exactly.
So I'm looking at this guy's Twitter feed, and I'm like, yeah, no, these people are right. I don't want this. I don't want the smoke at my con. I don't want this vibe. So we actually uninvited him. So we were like, yeah, you don't align with the convention or the convention's real mission statement, like we thought you did. So you don't get to come anymore. And he got like big mad at that. He was like, I can't believe you would do that. You would just listen to a whole bunch of people online. And I was like, I didn't even like listen to what they said. I'm looking at your Twitter feed.
It's him black and white, dude.
Yeah, I sent him screenshots to him. And I'm like, that's the N-word. Like, no. We're not doing that. Yep, he was saying gamer words on Twitter, dude. And then he was being real inappropriate. Not with underage people, but with girls. Like, there was a handful of cosplayers in the Brony fandom. And that were they just did Brony things. And so he was like in their mentions being wildly inappropriate. And so I was also inviting some of them to my show. And I'm like, no, we can't have that. So I was just like, yeah, you're just kind of, overall just a 3 out of 10. And we're not going to bring you. Womp womp. Oof. And just get real mad about it.
That's gonna be really stressful. So prior to the event, you're also monitoring social media so you don't have incidents like this.
Exactly, because you got to. When you're bronies and furries are probably the two groups of the most interesting and dramatic people maybe on the internet ever.
Really?
Oh yeah, there are so many like deep dive rabbit hole internet drama, creepy pedophile like weirdo videos on YouTube about furry and brony celebrities. You could keep yourself busy for several maybe weeks just kind of going over everything that maybe happened. Bronies are less so because it's not as big of a fandom anymore, but
yeah,
I mean, it is crazy. So there were like names that I had to look out for. There were people that like the conventions had almost like a group chat in essence that they would post after their event happened. This person and this person did this. Be aware. Keep your eye on it. And so we would all just kind of have each other's backs in that essence where we're like, hey, this weirdo came to my con. Don't let him come to yours.
Wow, you blacklist people and everything. Yeah.
You have to. You absolutely have to.
So, I mean, does the weirdness come because you become furry or I mean brony, or do you become weird after you become a brony? Like where does the weirdness come from? Because it's like you said, furries and bronies are like super duper dramatic. Like where is this coming from?
I think the weirdness uses something as an outlet. Right? Like, you got to be weird first. There's got to be something weird with you to be like into it in the first place, right? Like, I'm definitely a nerd, full
Yeah.
stop. I watch cartoons, I'm into anime. I've been like that forever. Um so I'm what society would consider, I mean, I guess less so now, but what society would have considered weird,
Hmm.
you know? So the weirdness has to exist, and I think that the weirdness just funnels itself into an outlet. Um and then that weirdness becomes acceptable when you put yourself inside of an echo chamber.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm weird, but I'm not as weird as this guy.
Got it. No, it makes sense. Yeah, it is trying to look for a type of like outlet, so I could see why it would come off that way. That's true. So you did mention also anime, and
Uh-huh.
I gotta confess, I try, I have tried anime, and I'm gonna give kudos to Japan. They come up with the craziest stories I have ever seen in my life. I love it. Like the creativity is absolutely insane. But I have not found one that just can click with me. And so I don't know. I don't know what is it about it that I have like it's not my cup of tea, but I really want to get into it, you know? Because it's like I'm
Let's
not tapping into this potential fandom, so much content that I really want to get into.
It's literally so okay. Um Not everything is going to fit everyone like a glove, you know?
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm Avatar the Last Airbender. Perfect
Oh,
example.
love it. Yeah.
Everybody loves Avatar the Last Airbender. It is an anime, right? So it goes to
Is it?
show, that's
Because
the
it was
thing.
great.
It's
Yeah.
created in America, but the cartoon style, the stylized of that they used in the show is absolutely akin to anime. So I don't
Okay, so
necessarily would
for you is the
categorize,
style. If the
yeah,
style is like anime, it is anime.
that's how I feel. I'm not
Okay.
going to gatekeep or keep someone out of my corner when they're trying to relate to me, by being like, well, that's not anime. You know, that's so silly because that person is talking to you, trying to relate to you. You know, they're trying to be your friend.
Yeah.
And so instead of like wrapping your arms so tightly around this one thing and you're saying like, it's mine, open
Hmm.
your heart up, open up your arms and let that person in because they're trying to be your friend. Like, no one's trying to take your personality away from you. That's something that like people, I feel, need to really understand. I'm really tired of people gatekeeping anime, um or like a specific character or something. Anime is just so vast
Yeah.
and there's so much of it now that it's so overwhelming. And when I watch anime, I look for a silly, goofy, good time. I'm not looking to cry. I'm not looking to be in my feelings. I'm looking to enjoy myself. And so the anime that I watch is a little bit more on the chaotic end of the spectrum. So I might not be a very good person to get recommendations from.
Yeah.
But I love Spy Family. That one I feel like is one that you can sit down with everybody in your house and watch
Yeah.
and enjoy. I'm trying to think. Castlevania, more adult, very
Well,
good.
okay, so yes, I did watch Castlevania with my wife, and we loved it. We absolutely loved it. But we kind of didn't consider anime because since it was a Netflix, and we kind of thought like, is it an American studio? See, that's where I struggle with identifying anime because
Got
I
it.
always think if it doesn't come from Japan, then I guess it's not anime.
I'm gonna tell you
That's
right now. Anybody
yeah.
that comes after you, that's like, that's not anime, they're just a big old bubble blowing double baby. They don't get to have that opinion. You just, if you think it's anime and you watch it, it's a cartoon, and it
Yeah.
looks like anime. It's anime, and I'm sure there's gonna be people that are like, she's wrong. I don't care. Come for
Yeah.
me if you must. But Castlevania counts. They had that Greek show.
Blood of Zeus. I also
Yeah,
watched that.
it's so good.
Fantastic show.
Also an
Okay, so I do
anime.
like anime. Oh, look
It
at that.
counts. It counts. Just all of the popular anime right now, a little weird. Like, it's a little bit on the weird side. Like, My Hero Academia is really hard. It's a really good one to watch. It's a really hard one to stay in. Um I would say.
So let's
Trying
say
to.
I want to get into anime. When I say anime, I say I want to get into a show from Japan.
Okay.
But I don't know where to begin. I can't do 1,300 different seasons with a million episodes. Like, what will be a good entry for me to just kind of like, hey, this is an easy way to just kind of like get into Japan anime, you could say.
Gurren Lagann. Fully Cooley is a good one. She's a little weird, very kind of niche, but I
Okay.
find Fully Cooley is super dope. I like it a lot. Um, Trying to think. Cowboy Bebop, super great.
Everybody recommends that one also.
Cowboy Bebop
Cowboy Bebop.
is amazing. My husband wants me to recommend Kill la Kill. I haven't seen Kill la Kill all the way through. I'm sorry. He's right next to me. He's like 5 feet away. He gave me
It's
like a
all right.
look. But that, those don't have a million episodes, a million seasons. I really liked Fire Force. I think that one's
Okay.
ongoing currently.
Yeah.
If you want to watch some older anime, these were released in the early 2000s, so keep your brain open when you watch them because they're early 2000s kind of cringy humor. But
Yeah.
the Oran High School Host Club, I'm sure your wife would like it. You would like it too. Fruits Baskets would be great. Black Butler has its place. It's a little weird,
My
but I did
sister
like it.
is like obsessed with that show, and she always recommended it. And I feel bad I never watched it, but she was obsessed with it. So
They
I'll keep an eye out on
finally,
that.
10 years later, gave us another season.
What?
Oh, yeah. 10 years
10
later,
years?
dude, we got another season. And we're like, oh my
What?
goodness
They
gracious.
ran out of money or something? What happened?
No, just there wasn't interest. They had. You remember Crunchyroll, right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so Crunchyroll was like back in the day, we're talking 2010s, the only place that you could buy anime that wasn't like eBay and $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
So Crunchyroll put out a whole bunch of anime in like box sets and
Yeah.
then limited released on Netflix when Netflix started to become more popular. So the way
Yeah.
that I watched Black Butler was my friend came over with her box set of Black Butler and we flipped through the DVDs while we were working on costumes. So she's like older, like very much older. Same vibe with Oran High School Host Club. Like we all would bring like a box set of anime that we had and we would flip through the DVDs as we were working on costumes. Streaming has made anime way more obtainable, which I love so much.
Yeah.
I love that, Hot Topic is now where you can get anime merch, box lunch. Like I remember begging my mother for a $50 Naruto t-shirt that you could only buy online. And the shipping made the shirt like $70.
Holy shit.
And my mom was like, you are not getting a $70 t-shirt. She's like, I don't even spend that kind of money on my clothes. And I'm sitting there, big, huge tears in my eyes, on my knees. I'm like, please, Mom. I got it for Christmas. It's fine. But
there you go.
like anime used to just like not be a thing and not be everywhere. So that's, when we got the second season, maybe third season, I don't remember, of Black Butler, the like 16-year-old in me was like, oh my God, finally.
So what is it about this show? Like, what is it about?
An orphan who makes a deal with the devil to find out, or deal with a demon to find out what happened to his parents, is what it starts as. It kind of snowballs outside of that very quickly. But that's how it starts. Yeah.
So that's the part that's interesting about the Japanese anime is that they always come up with the craziest stories, and they're not absolutely afraid one bit to just show it out there. I love that about Japan. I mean, I play a lot of Japanese games, and it's just the stories are so out there, so original, and that's what kind of attracts me to it. And not only that, Japan is they put forefront and center animation. I can't tell you how disappointed I am here, in the West, that they're so scared of just using animation. Everything is computerized, or I'm guessing you grew up with Disney, so you know what
Oh
the
yeah.
Disney golden age was like with
I miss
animation.
the 2D animation so much.
Yes. And just to clarify to the viewers, I'm talking about 2D animation. And now everything is just 3D or like Pixar like animation. And it's a style and it's okay. But you kind of get tired of that. And sometimes you just kind of, when you want to portray certain crazy ideas like Japanese anime portrays, the best medium for it is 2D animation. And it's crazy the things that they pull off with this. It's amazing. So I appreciate it for what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm really happy that anime took off the way that it did, and we can really thank the pandemic for that. Um, because
Really,
now I
you
really do
think it
think
was the
so.
pandemic?
I
Yeah,
think streaming services being available and having anime there, and then
yeah,
people just didn't have anything to do,
yeah,
so they're finally like, okay, so what are all these nerds on about? And then they get it, right?
yeah.
And now I'm seeing anime literally everywhere. Like Rick and Morty had like an anime segment of their opening, and The Simpsons had like an anime
Yeah.
part of their episode. Futurama had an entire anime parody. Like, it
Oh
was
God,
just so
I love
interesting to
Futurama.
see um this new popular form of media coming through and becoming
Yeah,
more mainstream.
yeah.
um and I think it's great because it's making that gap between being socially unaccepted and accepted very, very small.
Got it. Now I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, basically, people like us are the ones that grew up now, and now we're the ones like we have that voice to say like, "This is awesome. This was always awesome."
This was
Yeah,
always awesome. You're welcome.
yeah,
See, you made fun of
yeah.
me for this, but now you like it too.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Absolutely. And now rolling back again to you and your leadership with all of these conventions, did this come before or after you started managing the law firm?
It was before, way before.
Before. So
I
this,
think.
you think that this helped you with what you're currently doing now?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh yeah.
For sure. I mean, everything kind of seems easy comparatively. Just because business management is a lot of the same thing over and over and over again, right?
Yeah.
Every month, the same thing happens with your business. With a con, you're typically a 501c3, which is a non for profit, especially if
Okay.
you're little. So all the money that you make goes immediately back into the business. So I didn't make any money while I was running Crystal Mountain PonyCon. I
Got
did
it.
it purely on like a volunteer basis because I loved doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved creating and having a space available for people who felt a little bit socially awkward and socially rejected to have a place where they could go and feel welcome and feel normal. So it was rewarding for me in that aspect. And what I didn't realize was happening, well, as it was happening, was that I was learning how to run a business. How business credit card works, what you had to do in order to donate money to charities. Like, if I had never done that, would never have that information. And now that I do, I'm able to take that into businesses and be like, oh, I've done that before. I can help. I can plan an event with like literally no thought. It's so easy uh, for me now. So while I was in it, I didn't realize what I was really doing.
Yeah.
And then now that I'm on the outside of it, I'm like, thank goodness. Because it looks really good on
Yeah.
a resume.
Oh, absolutely. That's like super valuable what you're doing. That's fantastic. I really just like when I saw that video when you just casually mentioned like, yeah, my mom and my sister made this law firm and I'm managing it. I'm like, what? That's crazy. And I saw that you were so passionate answering this guy that just was just saying the stupid shit about women and education and all that. And I've noticed that you've throughout the interview and also in your videos have mentioned that men some men putting these these ridiculous statements about women going back to the kitchen, or education is overrated for women, or this or that. How do you feel about them whenever you hear stuff like this?
It is honestly infuriating to me that in current year there are still men out there that believe that a woman's true place is in the home. And it's not just people on the internet, there's politicians that feel that way, that are, current, that are saying that. Like, there's people that are like, oh, this celebrity is miserable because she doesn't have children. Like that bothers me so much, because what it comes down to when you really dissect it is that that man is insecure. That man is jealous. That person has, for some reason, decided that they are unhappy for this other person. Like, if you take gender completely away from it and you
Yeah.
look at it, that one person is unhappy that another person is happy. And it's, in my brain, doesn't make any sense, because you choose to be upset. Your emotions are a choice. Like, you could choose to be happy for her. You choose to celebrate her and be like, wow, that's such an accomplishment. That's such a big deal. Good for you, because that's what you would want from other people, to be acknowledged. Instead, because they don't have that and they feel like they're entitled to it, the attitude is different. And I can't stand it. To say that education is ruining marriages and is ruining women is something that's so close-minded and yucky that it pisses me off. Because I look at my mom and my sister's hard work. They went through law school, and they sit and they help men through their problems every single day. Men who trust them and pay them money, because guess what? They have an education. Like, it belittles that person's struggle, belittles that person's story. And the second that you turn around and you do that to a guy, you return the energy. It's not well received, received,
Yep.
So I want to be that guy. I return energy. I don't think that it's acceptable to say that about anybody. If you turn around and said that men, were ruining marriages because they have an education. No, men putting in the bare minimum is no longer acceptable for women. And I think that is a huge deal, because women don't need men to live their life now. Women are choosing to get married. They're choosing to have children. Whereas before, it was just trajectory in their timeline. You graduated from high school, you maybe did a little bit of college, but then you got married and you had kids. My sister, my mom, my cousins, my friends, I get so excited when they accomplish something. And when they choose to settle down and when they choose to have children, I will be excited for them then.
Do you think that maybe subconsciously you doing all of these things by yourself, creating this channel, growing, technically you're growing a business, doing this stuff with charity, I mean, you are a fully accomplished person, and I know you have that goblin in the back of your head saying, "Nah, I don't do that much. That's okay." But this is like a lot, and that's great. Do you think that you picked up on that because you were around those types of women in your family?
Oh, absolutely. Strong women raise strong women. And my dad, growing up, he always told me to surround myself with people who I wanted to be like.
Mm-hmm.
So I've really taken that to heart, and I hang out with a lot of people that have the same kind of drive and energy that I have. I don't really hang out with people that, are really kind of down in the dumps and down on themselves and don't really do anything to better themselves. Like, that's so frustrating to me. Like, if you're miserable, change it.
Yeah.
And everything that I've done in terms of like my online presence and the gaming and the costuming and the TikTok, I really just did for me. And I've always kind of had the opinion of, if it takes off, if I'm successful, it's great, because it's just me. I'm not putting on a persona. I'm not pretending to be someone that I'm not. It's just Julie. And if people find that worth following, then I think that that is amazing.
Well said. And what are your thoughts now that, even though we have this camp of people that are absolutely socially acceptable about the growth that women are having in society. But now you have this opposite camp coming up that is an absolute headache with the red pill type of thing, the Andrew Tate type of BS. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
They're really just yelling at a brick wall. Women are going to continue to be successful. That's not something that's going to slow down because Andrew Tate says so. Because
Yeah.
he's screaming at a bunch of other men. That what it does is it fuels my fire. It makes me want to go be the president. Just a
Hmm.
bunch of shitty men sitting in a circle with microphones being like, women are the worst. I'm like, yeah, you
Yeah.
right. Watch me be cool at it.
Yep.
So, I mean, they all want to have their little podcasts and their AA meetings, where they've been all scorned by women and their feelings have been hurt. Um, I don't really care about it. Women are going to continue to be successful, whether you like it or not.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't think that that would bother you as much, but I always wanted to get the take on somebody to see what they think about stuff like this because they say so much ridiculous stuff, and unfortunately, they have such a huge following, and it's just so mind-boggling frustrating when you
It
hear these
is.
comments, and some of these people, are married or they have sisters or obviously they have moms, and it's like, really, my guy, that you really want to spew this BS out there?
I just
And
feel like it's also a vocal minority. I know that most
yeah.
men don't feel this way. Most
Hmm.
men who are married are happy. They don't get on podcasts and say that women suck and it's their fault that they're single. They're happy, they're married, they're minding their business. Um, so it's just these weirdos who just sit together basically
And just scream at each
and just scream at each other. It's the weirdest thing.
Yeah. So, advice for aspiring, you know people that want to create their own business, or they just want to do like you, manage a con or create a channel, like, what would you say to these people?
Everything that I have done has kind of been accidental, but it's because I said yes. It's because I was afraid, but I wanted to do it. So don't say no to something just because you're scared you're gonna mess it up. You're gonna mess it up. You're gonna fumble. That's okay. That's how you learn and you grow and you become better at it. And there is no being perfect without mistakes. And then also, I know a lot of people say, unless I can do it perfectly, I won't do it at all. You'll never do anything if you aim for perfection because perfection is unobtainable. There is something so human about failure that you shouldn't be afraid of it. Everybody does it. You're going to do it. And the only way to feel less embarrassed by it is to do it a lot.
Makes sense. You get exposed more to that embarrassment, and it just, like the horror games with you, you just like, you're accustomed to it. You're
Mm-hmm.
already like desensitized to it, like you said.
Yep. And you just pick yourself up and you try again.
It's not the end of the world.
No. And it's never as big as a deal as you think it is.
Absolutely. So, any future projects, as aspirations that you have for channel or just Jules in general?
Well, I'm trying to get better at uploading to YouTube on like a regular basis and doing streaming on a more regular basis, but I will again be at Salt Lake City FanX, so if you're going to be there, I will be doing some panels with my group of people, and then I'll be cosplaying. Really, I want to continue to create content because it's fun and because I love it, and if you guys want to join me, you are more than welcome.
Excellent. Any other plugs that you want to put in your socials? Anything to promote?
I'm Juju is bomb basically on everything except for Twitch. They wouldn't let me into my old Twitch, so my Twitch is not just like the one Juju is bomb, it's all separated by underscores. But otherwise, that's where I'm at. I do post some pretty cool content. I post some pretty cool pictures. Um, and I'm just really here to have fun. I'm just a person, and so don't be A, scared to talk to me because I'm obtainable, and B, I do just like want to hang out. So yeah, that's me. Follow me, I guess.
Absolutely. I will definitely put all your socials and everything on the description below.
Oh,
I'm
thanks.
also going to do a few TikToks for you.
Oh, thank you.
And, you know, I just want to close up here and just thank you for all the time that you've given me. It's about like an hour and a half almost. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. Guys, thank you so much. I want to thank Juju is Bomb, also known as Jules. You can follow her on the socials that she mentioned. Thank you for joining me, Juju. See you guys later. Bye.
If you like the series and Digi's other content, remember to like and subscribe. You can also find Digi on TikTok, Twitch, Discord, and Twitter. Bye for now.